swap that for this.
Hey, Nettie, Owens here. Brought Andrew Mellen, the most organized man in America, to continue our conversation about what businesses need to know right now. And we're actually, since he's the most organized man in America, we're going to be talking about organization and focus and productivity, some of my favorite topics to talk about. So it'll be fun to dig in here. Just to help you get to know Andrew a little bit better, he's a keynote speaker, coach, productivity, and organizational expert, and the #1 best-selling author of Unstuff Your Life, which is also an amazing podcast, right, as well. And the most organized man in America's Guide to Moving. So fantastic resources to check out. Welcome, Andrew. We just have a quick 10 minutes here, and we're going to dig right in. Everybody has been shifting and moving their work environment. So from the top, what do businesses need to know? We've been like a couple months into this process. What do we need to know about moving our work home or even back into the workspace?
Yeah, I would say the underlying everything is adjusting your mindset to adapting to the fact that nothing is going to be predictable. I find that with my clients, both on the B2C side and the B2B side, one of the biggest stumbling blocks is this idea that this is a temporary situation and things are going to reset themselves back to normal, whatever normal is or was. Right. And every time that doesn't happen, people get thrown for an emotional, psychological, and very physical loop around their stuff. So the sooner you can let go of this need for things to reset and walk forward with a certain amount of grace and appreciation for the unpredictable, the easier it will be for you to adapt to the next thing that happens. And regardless of what it is, whether you like it, you don't like it, whether it increases revenue, decreases revenue, whatever the challenge might be, if you can approach it with a sense of, this is not surprising. The micro facts might be surprising, but the fact that it's something you couldn't predict is no longer surprising, because I find that bump in the road is the place that more people fall down and get upset, because I was expecting this, it didn't happen, and now I'm pissed or I'm hurt. And either way, you can't meet what is actually arising, because you're having to dismantle your expectation first before you can actually interact with what is. And
right. So changing your expectations around that life is going to be unpredictable for a while, or at least maybe not unpredictable. Maybe it's just life is going to be unfolding in a new way. It was always unpredictable. We just kind of got into this like false sense of security that things would always continue the way that they had been going, which, if we look back on history, that's never been the case, right?
Right, but people like patterns, people like control. And so what you can control.
I just have to pause for a second. Sure. We are people who love patterns and control. Like, you're not organizers, we love patterns and control. And yet we're coming here and telling you, it's okay.
Well, and excellent pivot, because we do love patterns and control. And my suggestion is control the things you can control. What time you show up for work, how you stay focused. Those things you have complete control on. Whether you wear a plaid shirt or you wear a plain shirt, whether you have breakfast or you don't have breakfast, those are things you can control. You cannot control the coronavirus. You cannot control, whether your clients return your phone calls. There's lots of things you can't control. You can control yourself. So instead of, again, having this outward focus of, God, the world doesn't look like I want it to, and I'm frustrated by that, just turn the attention back on yourself, your environment. What can you control? Control that. You'll get the lizard part of your brain will quiet down if you move stuff from room to room and tidy it up. And it will allow you a better platform to meet the unpredictable nature of life, which is a constant.
Right. Well, and it's interesting because right when all of this stuff hit, and I don't know if this was happening in your area, but in my area, the trash trucks and the recycling trucks and the donation facilities started becoming really overwhelmed because people did turn inwardly and they started organizing their homes and clearing out clutter and things like that. Yeah. So I'm wondering, I'm guessing that's sort of taken a bit of an even keel. How does this show up in business? What are the things that business owners need to know or focus on that they can control? What would you say?
Well, I mean, if you're going to be working remotely, do you still need an office? If you still have an office, are you going back to the office? What does the office need to look like? If most of your people are going to be telecommuting, how do you support that transition, that this isn't temporary again, but this is going to become the new normal for as long as it's going to become the new normal? I have a client that I'm working with right now in Washington, D.C., and they have staff of 30 people, and they're not going back to the office. They've already made that decision. So now part of what we're doing is dismantling the office. There's physical assets that need to be liquefied as quickly as possible. And the physical plant needs to be emptied so that we can return it to the landlord. And we also need to establish longer term protocols and SOPs, standard operating procedures, for how we're going to do business, because this isn't temporary.
Right.
So how are we going to store and share documents? Do we have a common lexicon? Even if you had a server in the office, did you have a common lexicon that everybody understood? This is how we name. These are the naming conventions for files. This is where we're storing things in the cloud. This is the path to the documents that you're looking for, so that people aren't constantly pinging each other saying, hey, I can't find the blah, blah, blah. If it's in one location and everybody knows where it is, it no longer becomes the CEO's job to tell the executive assistant, the path hasn't changed. This is where we're parking things in Dropbox or whatever cloud-based file sharing platform you're using. So I would say, look at both the physical plant of where you're working, and then look at the protocols for how you're going to share information, share digital assets, share resources. And the quicker you can systematize that, if it hasn't been systematized, migrate to a new platform and reapply the protocols to that new platform, all of those things will make your life much easier and create less friction. All of the friction that we can't control.
Right.
Personalities, all of those things are still going to be there, but there should be no friction when it comes to working with an inanimate object.
That's a great point. And I feel like what I'm seeing is businesses that had really good systems, it was really just a matter of adapting the systems and moving forward. This has sort of pulled the cover back on businesses that didn't have great systems in place, where communication may have been lacking, and all of a sudden they're scrambling to put it into place, to have better communication, to know where things were stored physically, digitally. What are we going to do in the case of an emergency? So it's really kind of blown the top off of that. Really quick, because we only have a minute left here, is there something we're missing? Like, is there a blind spot that maybe you've noticed that businesses are experiencing right now? I
go back to the idea of mindset, because I find it underlies everything. And so instead of taking it personally, because it didn't happen to you, it's just happening, without it becoming overly woo-woo and Pollyanna-ish, there is an opportunity here, and it's not the huckster opportunity of like, here, this is the way that you can exploit, CV19, but there is an opportunity. As you said, the lid has been pulled back. So it's a perfect time to take inventory, take stock. What can you put into play? Like, I mean, on the B2C side, it was a chance to look at, did you have a living will in place? Do you have a healthcare proxy? I probably should get one in place. On the business side, it's the same sort of an internal inventory. If you don't have those things in place, instead of bitching and moaning about it, see it as an opportunity of like, okay, so now we really can't procrastinate any longer. Let's take advantage of the fact that we've discovered this about us, and it's confronting us to make a different choice.
Absolutely. I love that recommendation, and just sort of I don't want to say silver lining, but the opportunity here. So thank you so much, Andrew. It's absolutely been a pleasure to have you here. And for those who would like to reach out to Andrew, you can check him out on his website. From there, you can send an email. He's also on LinkedIn. And if you're a business that's trying to make this shift, absolutely reach out. He's got some great resources for you. Thanks so much for being here.
Thanks, Nettie. It's my pleasure.